Hi, everybody. Before I start, okay, it's true story, in case you don't know. We tell personal stories that we share with the audience, and um, hopefully you go away sharing our stories as well, where they impact you in a positive way. Um, we are always a work in progress. Some folks are creating a body of work, and some people are just creating singular stories. But it's awesome. And we've been doing it for over 10 years now. And tonight's theme is mixtape. And when I was thinking of the theme for tonight, and I landed on mixtape, I thought I was very clever actually, because there's so many. It actually has mix in the title, and it has opportunities for so many potential topics. And for me, it's very specific. It is mixtape. When I was growing up in Providence, Rhode Island, there was a dilapidated dive bar pool table in the back where all the riffraffs and delinquents and dropouts hang out. This was the original Met Cafe on Friendship Street. The Met was a shithole. It had a disgusting bar. Floors were sticky with God knows what. It was very dark. And you could hardly see because of the smoke and the filth in the back room with the pool table. The whole place was also structurally a crapshoot because there was a huge hole in the floor that everybody just stepped over to shoot a game of pool. Some folks never made it through the first rack. But to me, it was just way wicked fucking fun. I was there one night with my two closest friends, Lars and Keith. Lars and I were super high, honestly. And I was always high, and I had no idea how we ended up here. But I was having a really great time for a 15-year-old. And of course, my memory of this is very hazy, but I'm going to recall as much as I can. I remember being in the with a pool table. I remember a live band, very, very, very loud. And I was talking to a guy whose name was maybe Paul, maybe Doug. I think it was Doug. Anyway, just as maybe Doug moved in to make out, the smoke cleared, and across the pool table, I saw my big brother's face. And he was not happy. I grabbed maybe Dave and made for the back door. He kindly went ahead of me to make sure that I got safely over the hole in the floor with my click-clackety plastic candies. He was a good guy, maybe Paul. I remember being in the parking lot and giving maybe Doug my address, which he had asked me to write for him because he wanted to write to me. Then I remember finally making out with maybe Dave, a guy who had a cavernous mouth and a lot of enthusiasm. And he had me really confused and kind of blindsided as my brother came out the back door of the Met. But I heard him, "Go home!" He boomed across the parking lot. So me and my friends, we went home. A week later, I received a package in the mail. It was a mixtape from maybe Doug. And it was mostly Blue Oyster Cult. And being the troubled teen I was, who did not fear the Reaper, I wrote back and thanked him and told him I thought it was really cool. He wrote me another letter the next week, and he told me that he had gotten us tickets for Blue Oyster Cult. Always been my protector. And as much as I may have been miffed at him at the moment, somehow I knew that it probably would be best for me not to go. It made me feel mature to make that decision. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But somehow I understood that I should listen to my brother. I wrote to maybe Dave to tell him that I couldn't go. But I will never forget to be thankful to maybe Mark for the gift of his mixtape. Let me tell you, for those who don't know, the school mixtapes were so intimate and personal because for someone to open up enough to share that music, the soundtrack in their heads, it was a big deal. It took a lot of effort and concentration to make a really, really good, clean mixtape. You had to listen to the radio for hours, and you had to call in over and over again to request a song, and then you'd have to wait over the tape recorder with your finger poised over the red record button. Just thinking about someone taking the time to do that was seriously romantic and profoundly honest. I have some more stories about the Met, and I'll share those with you at another time, but I would like to end with this, saying this to maybe Doug in the future. I dearly regret not going to hear Blue Oyster Cult with you because of your kindness and your honesty, and also because I'm sure it was probably the best fucking live concert in the late 70s to hear Blue Oyster Cult play Don't Fear the Reaper live, Phil. But hey, what did I know? I was a kid. That's it. I'm so, that should have my name. I'm Lizzie Rosser. I'm going to go up there and hear them for Sarah. Sarah Rockwood is joining us for the second time, and I just love her writing. I'm so thankful you came back. Come tell us a story.
Thank you, Lizzie. Hi, guys. Can I tell you a story? On March 1st, 1956, my grandfather, Bill, wrote a letter to his new love and eventual bride. He was stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, but most importantly, he was newly in love with a girl named Marilyn. While Bill and Marilyn would eventually go on to be married and have children, and their love would drown in the sticky muck of his alcoholism, this letter was written before all that. The version of Bill and Marilyn who held this letter were young and beautiful and wildly hopeful. His letter closed with the following, quote, I think I'll send my record player and records home this month. The player isn't working right at all, and the records are getting all scratched. Do you like to listen to music at 2 o'clock in the morning? Almost every time I buy a record, I ask myself, how will this record sound at 2 a.m.? A long time later, decades gone by, it's 2 in the morning once more. My grandfather is long dead. We scattered his ashes off the pier in Newport Beach, just a few blocks away from the apartment he died in. A gust of wind picked up and the ashes flew back in our faces. That's Bill, Marilyn said. I think of this as I ride the N Judah. At the time, it was one of the few bus services that ran a ghost line in San Francisco. Every few hours throughout the night, it would snake through the city. It was always packed with party girls like me and career drunks like me. And once we passed the UCSF hospital, promising med students who were not at all like me. I snaked along the tracks back to my horrifying studio apartment in the inner Sunset. It was 2012. That sticky alcoholism that began its invasive rot way back with my grandfather had made its way to me, but I didn't know it yet. Alcoholism infects families the same way zombies do in movies. I haven't noticed yet, but I've been bitten, and eventually I'll notice. I'm drunk. I'm very drunk. I'm also beautiful and in love, just like Bill and Marilyn. My Tangled headphones play Swinging Party by The Replacements. I'm alone, but only literally, because I spent the evening with a mean boy who I would have loved forever if he would have let me. The song ends and I started over. We found that letter my grandfather wrote about music at 2 a.m. just a few years ago. It was stuffed in the attic of an antique dollhouse. Marilyn and Bill, they hurt each other so badly, but she couldn't bear to throw away those letters. When we found it, she laughed again. I forgot I put them there, she says. I think about that letter. It's so true. My vision blurs. I love music. I love drinking. The ties that bind. Further down the line, I'm back in LA, and my dad picks me up from yet another horrifying apartment, this time nestled deep in Echo Park. We are seeing the replacements at the Forum. Obama is in office. My dad, Fred, Bill and Marilyn's son, is newly sober. That drunk mutt got him too. I'm still drunk. I was drunk all the time. At the show, we dance and laugh. I love my dad so much. The band plays Swinging Party, and I scream and laugh. I remember when my Tangled headphones sang me that song a long time ago on the N Judah. I am drunk. My dad is not. The muck has me by the throat. Later that night, back in my apartment, it's 2 a.m. again, and I think of my grandfather's letter. It's so true, I say out loud to no one. 5 years after that concert, further down the coil, my dad and I stand on Glendale Boulevard in Atwater Village, outside a yellowing stucco building. It's my first AA meeting. No music plays, of course, but it plays inside of me. After the meeting, my dad walks me home. I'm married now to a very kind man. We listen to music at 2 a.m. sometimes too. I feel embarrassed, I say. Why? I don't know, Dad. It feels unbecoming to be such a drunk. I'm so young. I was 28 when I got sober. You have to be a real nasty drunk to end up in AA at 28. That's what I told myself, but it isn't true. Eventually, I'll be more gentle with myself, but right now I'm white hot with anger. I wish I could have been normal. I always wonder what my dad would have been like if he had gotten sober young, said my dad. My dad was the most perfect thing. 5 years later, again, 2023, my dad picks me up once more, this time outside of the Kaiser Hospital on Sunset Boulevard. My 4-year-old son hit his head a few days ago, and the just-in-case CT scan caught what we would eventually learn was 25 cancerous masses. My dad is taking me home to sleep and be with our 2-year-old daughter while my husband takes the night shift at the hospital with our son. It was a Saturday night in LA, and winding through the streets of Los Feliz, I'm hysterical. My dad is steady on the wheel. We're both sober now, and we both want nothing more in this moment than complete obliteration. We don't pick up. The camaraderie of two drunks abstaining is enough to get us through. Wolfie, I say my son's name. I know, my dad says. We drive in silence. I don't think I've ever been around my dad without music playing. A drunk girl stumbles out into the crosswalk on Hyperion in front of us. They're shrieking with laughter, and they're young, and they're fun. My dad and I stare. They don't have a fucking clue, my dad says. That's good, I say. I'm not only gentle with myself now, I'm gentle with others too. The resentment is as tempting as a ripe, juicy apple to a cartoon, but I've learned to resist. Eventually, we arrive at my home. It isn't horrifying this time, it's beautiful. I've been sober for a long time, and my home is covered in my children's art and books and records, and it's full of love. It was good that I got sober so young. My life is beautiful, and it's very special to me. But Wolfie is sick, and it'll be a long time before he gets better. I ask my dad to sit at the foot of my bed until I fall asleep. My daughter is nestled in my arms. Your brother is so sick, I want to scream, but I don't. Instead, I sing her Late Nights by Nico, and I tell my dad not to leave until I'm asleep. I don't want to go to sleep alone. Eventually, I've cried. There is to cry, and I submit to sleep. A few hours later, I start awake. My dad is gone, and my daughter is snoring softly next to me. I check my phone, text from my husband with updates about the nurses' check-ins throughout the night and the plan for tomorrow. The doctor said he needs an MRI with contrast because it's not just in his brain, it's in his spine too. You can see the tip of the spinal tumor in the CT scan. Oh my God. I check the time, it's 2 a.m., and I'm alone in my living room. I get up and put on a record. It really does sound better at 2 a.m. Thank you.
My dad brought chaos into the house in the form of bagpipes. Later in life, my mom lost most of her hearing. She said from hearing sirens downtown. My theory is that the source was closer to home. Bagpipes are a shrill, furious instrument, often associated with war and deep sadness, which made them the perfect soundtrack for my childhood. My dad and brothers were in a bagpipe band, and we went to a lot of parades. I made my way to the front where I could see. The pipe bands and marching bands all had loud drums, which gave me a thrill. I could feel the music in the pit of my stomach. I thought it was bad, naughty, which made it even better. My dad liked two kinds of music: bagpipe bands and bird songs. I would guess that this is the first music I ever heard, though maybe not. I had older siblings who listened to AM radio, songs like Wooly Bully, Hang On Sloopy, and my favorite, Pushin' Too Hard by the Seeds. When I was old enough, I wrote a fan letter to Sky Saxon, the singer of the Seeds. I received a letter back from, I think, the head of the fan club. His letter said, "Sky's on tour now, but when he gets back, I'm sure he'll write you a letter." He never did. Did it diminish my love for the Seeds? Not a bit. When I was 7, I went with my mother to an empty house. It was overcast and may have recently rained. The backyard was covered with 45 RPM records, singles. My friend Sarah, who was not entirely trustworthy, told me that a teenage girl had lived there and thrown her records out the window. I went around and picked them up. There were at least a dozen of them. A few by the Turtles, like Happy Together on White Whale Records. The Rolling Stones, Get Off My Cloud with I'm Free on the B-side. Some other surf songs and other hits of the day. I could not have been happier to find such treasures. I took them with me, quite possibly against my mother's wishes or knowledge. They were all cool records, but the one that exploded my young brain was called Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen. The very name Trashmen. I didn't even have to hear it to know that this was my favorite group. But the song itself was 2 minutes and 20 seconds of irrational bliss. It breaks down in the middle with the singer sounding like he's gleefully drowning, and then he works himself up again, singing up, 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 until the song careens once more at an even more frantic pace. I've heard it described as one of the greatest achievements of civilization. And I don't disagree. I took it to school and played it for my second grade classmates. The teacher allowed the song to be played at its proper blaring volume. The custodian ran into the room thinking there was a problem. The problem was that most of my classmates failed to recognize the genius of Surfin' Bird. We were not meant for each other. The school cafeteria had long tables. It was on one of these long tables towards the middle that some unknown adversary wiped a booger on my Peanuts lunch pail. It was also at one of these tables that I developed one of the most important relationships of my life with the boy who would become Code Ray. At that time, he was called Mark. One day at lunch, Mark announced somewhat profoundly that the Beatles started out with harmonica. I was quick to agree. Finally, someone who spoke my language. Hair swears was another memorable statement that Mark made that day. He dearly loved the original cast recording of the musical Hair. Hair did indeed swear and included funny, subversive show tunes that were fun to sing at the top of your lungs, even if your 8-year-old brain didn't know what you were saying. We sang them for years to come. How fortuitous to meet someone so relatable in the stinking dump we grew up in. We became inseparable, and then around the age of 12, I emotionally detached from my family to grow up at Toad's house. Mark became Toad after we saw a movie that featured a character named Toad. Toad and I commenced our education together with the help of his older brother, John. We consumed everything that parent culture deemed unworthy or vulgar. Those two really had a taste for the finer stuff, and I was all ears. This was during the era that would later be called classic rock. Now that it's a little too familiar, we now regard classic rock as essentially a state-sanctioned orgasm. But in its day, it was the soundtrack for millions of kids sneaking out after dark to taste life's puerile pleasures, and Toad and I were fully on board. We were beatniks in training. I don't know if I ever told Toad this or anyone. I was deathly afraid of becoming a jazz bo when I grew up. I had seen it happen to a lot of really fun and funny sorts of people. When they crossed the thresholds into adult, they put on comfortable shoes and turned to jazz. They might as well have given up living. Jazz was a boil on the ass of popular culture in the 70s. There was a flugelhorn and trumpet playing guy whose one saccharine song was the soundtrack of every ice cream social, spring fling, or summer fair for nearly a decade. There was no escape. Toad and I spent most of our loose and restless collective youth at record shops and thrift stores. Records and music were our one connection to reality. We were partial to sounds that made the walls shake and our teeth rattle, but we basically liked it all, including easy listening. We were music fans. We thought of it as all we had. We didn't start making tapes until we were in our late teens, and cassette machines became ubiquitous. By then, we had both acquired huge record collections, from which we made mixtapes for every mood. I don't think we called them mixtapes, though. I think it was just tapes. These tapes came in handy when I met a pagan love goddess named Abira Ali. We lived different lives in different cities with other people. We kept our connection via mail. We kind of lost touch at different times, but then a friend of hers, Anne, moved to San Francisco. Anne is the kind of person who bumps into people and smashes things with her bike, which made her absolutely my kind of person. She moved to town and we became friends, and then Abira and I started talking on the phone. Pretty soon, she showed up in person with a customized suitcase and 2 cassette tapes. One was Johnny Cash, and the other was Songs the Cramps Taught Us, a mix of pure, unhinged rockabilly and like that. Songs included Tornado by Dale Hawkins and Peggy Lee's Fever. I got a fever. Getting a tape like this means love. I went to New York, and we liked going out, but we also liked staying in, listening to records, drawing, and making tapes. We were building a life together. Eventually, we moved back to Los Angeles and raised a child, one who indeed knows what diddy wah diddy means and feels the music. Late in life, my dad lost touch with the outside world, a little bit at a time. To keep him occupied, my mom put on bagpipe music at his required blaring volume. He would sit in his chair for hours, embracing the music physically, stomping his feet and clapping his hands. After my dad left this earthly plane, my mom continued on, enjoying her life. She didn't much listen to music. I thought she might have anhedonia, a condition when someone doesn't derive pleasure from or excitement from hearing music. When she could no longer live independently and moved into a senior home, the caregivers tried to get her to watch TV or listen to music. She would have none of it. Until they found a station that played nothing but the Beatles, and she loved it. It turned out she did like music. She liked the Beatles, just like Toad Ray. Today, I'm a jazz dad in comfortable shoes. My love for loud music may or may not have contributed to my now less than perfect hearing. So I keep the volume lower, but I can still feel the awesome power and beauty of a good song. Oh, what we got? Yeah, my mom. We saw my dad with his pipes when he was later in his life, and that's me as the jazz dad.
So before we move on, our friend and company member, my friend and company member, Yves Segal, has been coming to True Story since the beginning and supporting us. And this is the first time that she's sharing a story, and I'm so thankful that you have.
My God, how my father squirmed in shame when he told this story about how his mother got down on her knees and kissed the hand of the countess, begging that her son Eugene be admitted into the gymnasium. That was Russian high school in Kiev in the late 1800s. Well, squirm as he may have done, it worked. And he and another boy named Kalmanson became the two Jewish boys admitted that year. Soon after that, they found themselves standing back to back, fighting off the other students who were trying to smear pork on their lips. And a lifelong friendship began. These two boys met again in Berlin when so many people had to flee during and after the Russian Revolution. And once again in New York City, Tomlinson had a girlfriend who was in love with my father. Well, the two had a big love affair. And well, when my father had enough of that and wanted to get married to my mother, this girlfriend showed up at their apartment and demanded money. My mother, though, was too hip for that. She said if she came again, she'd go to the district attorney and open a case for extortion. I'm telling you this because the friendship of the two boys survived all of it. Later, they again met. Now they're married with children in Los Angeles, in North Hollywood, right over there. Like most immigrants, notwithstanding the prestige they were able to achieve in their own country, they were reduced to menial work here in the United States. Taxi cab driving, waiting tables, janitorial services, small businesses, which were often doomed to failure. And like all immigrants, they desperately wanted their children to amount to something. That would justify, even ease the humiliation of their lowly work, the long hours, double shifts, the self-sacrifices, and the pinching of pennies. I remember my father, to save a couple of bucks, asked me to cut his hair with this homemade hair cutting device, a razor and a metal handle, and my father would step over the toilet in the bathroom with the seat down, and I'd go around his neck, cutting off. I could hear the sound of that scraping, even today. That kind of penny pinching. Yeah. The children became aware. The children became the men's life's work, which was be somebody. That was the message, and we, the offspring, felt every bit of that imperative. Collinson had two children. Alex, the older, beautiful boy, handsome, tall, a young hero. Intelligent, top of his class. I think he made president one year. This boy was obviously going places. Me, on the other hand, well, I didn't have any special talent. I sure didn't have a musical ear. Not athletic, not pretty. My grades were okay, but that's because I worked like a dog, not because I had any mental prowess. I sure wasn't going to be an artist. I remember in grammar school waiting in lines to hand in my art project of the day and glancing at the artwork of the student in front of me. Right then I realized I was never going to be an artist. No way. No matter how hard I tried or wanted to make my parents proud, I was simply ordinary. Now, Kalmanson's second child was Natasha. She was, as it was called in those days, mentally retarded. My father insisted that Natasha be invited to all my birthday parties, and I didn't mind. I wanted to be a nice person. I gave her a hug, told her she looked pretty. Sometimes it was hard when she'd pick up her velvet skirt and blow her nose into it in front of all the children. That wasn't easy. But I pretended not to see, went on with the games. I never heard her say a word. Well, we grew up. High school graduation approached. Not from any czarist gymnasium. Graduation from the world's envied, top standard, liberal, and free American educational system. This is the 1950s. We had the best schools in the world. Thomas Jefferson's gift to all citizens so they would be qualified to vote, had the opportunity to achieve equality. Through their children, both men would be part of American exceptionalism. Tragedy strikes. Carlton wants to let his son know how proud of him he is for graduating high school, becoming 18, entering manhood. He wants to express his complete confidence and approval to his son. He gives him a gift, a pistol. One evening, after Alex has had his first unrequited love affair, he wanders out on the front lawn and blows his brains out. The commons has completely collapsed. There's talk of putting Nastasha in a home. That never happens. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow, life goes on. I'm able to walk across the stage in my cap and gown. Shortly thereafter, I get a job, a highfalutin secretarial position of sorts. I'm married, divorced, no children. My father suddenly has a heart attack and quickly passes, followed by my mother a few months later. His mother dies. Then one day, it's my birthday. I'm alone now, not a family. I decide to pay common sense a visit. He's sick in bed. I hear him say, "Natasha, dear, could you bring me Papa a glass of water?" Natasha goes to the sink, turns on the faucet, fills a glass of water, turns off the faucet, and carries your father a glass of water. And at that moment, I realized for the very first time in my life, it's not necessary to do anything spectacular. In scholarship, artistic triumph, stardom, wealth, invention. In order to be somebody, all that was really necessary was to give from the heart, something that was needed. Simple. Because simple is best. And love is everything.
Alex, welcome home to your stage. Alex Alfaro, friend.
Thank you for that. Um, mixtape. Mixtape is a remix of melodies that conjure up memories. And in the theater, we like to talk about the magical what if. So for me, mixtape is a what if of things that could have happened, that may have happened, that somewhere in another parallel reality did happen. So previously, a documentary journey. You might have heard my story. You know, the one where I risked my freedom to leave the US, the only country I've ever known and call home. Obviously, I made it back home, wrote about the events that changed my life, and here I am. A lot has changed for the better, but one mistake could have remixed my reality. Here's how it would have gone down. Let me give you a quick recap in order to bring you up to speed, but let's put the events of my story in 2025 at the start of the 47th instead of the 45th, in 2025 instead of 2017, and here's why. At the beginning of the year, I left Los Angeles as an undocumented immigrant whose only legal status was DACA. It was the end of January, and my work permit would expire in March, which was less than a month away. My renewal had been pending for over 3 months, which was way longer than I'd ever had to wait for a renewal at that time. I had applied for what is called emergency advance parole. Now, advance parole allows DACA recipients like myself to leave the country for a maximum of 30 days to one specified location outside of the United States with the possibility of being paroled back into the country. You all follow so far? Okay. So there are a couple of catches to applying, receiving, and using advance parole. One, you have to qualify to apply for advance parole through one of three outlets. Employment-based advance parole, which is the hardest to prove. Education-based, which is equally difficult, but has happened under organized school efforts and officials if you are enrolled as a college student. And lastly, through a family emergency. I qualified through a family emergency because my grandfather was dying, and I was headed to meet him and help him make mortuary arrangements. Two, you have to be able to prove that your case is valid by submitting a whole file cabinet's worth of paperwork, and I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, you have to officially translate documents like birth certificates, medical records, you have to have proof of parentage, things like that. Three, this one is probably the most serious one. Readmission into the United States is at the sole discretion of the immigration officer that is inspecting you. Once a determination on your case has been made, there is no change in course. This means that having advance parole does not guarantee readmission into the country. It means that they can allow you to come if the officer wants you to. When I left Guatemala on advance parole, I had 5 days left on my document. My Guatemalan passport had expired because the new administration at the time had caused a pause to the issuance of all foreign passports, meaning the only way I could get a new passport was if I headed back to the old country where I was born and try to get one issued that same day at the Guatemalan consulate, which was not guaranteed. If I left on the first day of the Muslim travel ban, which I did, it meant that the immigration officers had been given specific instructions to deny readmission as a policy and to allow admissions as the exception, a reversal from previous administrations when it comes to the usage of advance parole. Lastly, if I was delayed or held back for whatever reason, I would forfeit my status in the United States and I would be banned from returning home for a minimum of 10 years based on a clause in immigration law called cancellation and removal. So let's pick up my story of this little remix. Once I get to LAX, I'm being inspected by an immigration officer that has sent me into secondary inspection. Now, secondary inspection is when they put you in a little tiny room and you're once again interviewed by an officer that reviews all your documentation and your paperwork. This is the person that will determine if you are allowed back into the U.S. So what was the nature of your departure? When was the last time that you traveled outside to the US before this one? How long were you gone out of the country? What did you do for a living? Did you for that? Where did you get your advance parole? Let me see your advance parole. Follow me. As the immigration officer takes me to a place that I don't know, has me follow through a corridor. Meanwhile, my 14-year-old daughter, Aileen, waits to get picked up from school at Renaissance Arts Academy down the street. It's Tuesday afternoon. Just one more day before my dad is supposed to come back home. I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying to be positive. I've been praying to the Virgen de Guadalupe. I've been burning incense in my room every day. I've been listening to Selena to keep the positive vibes going up. I have to believe that my dad is coming back. Because if he doesn't pick me up by tomorrow afternoon, it's because something terrible has happened to him. Anna, is that how you pronounce your name? Right. Ainer. Well, I got some news for you, Ainer. We were able to verify your identity, but we ran into a problem. We can't verify the validity of the expungement of your arrest in 2009 for disturbing the peace. Now, it's the policy of this administration to carefully review and screen every alien that made it into our country, and after much consideration, we are denying you parole back into the United States. My heart sinks. I have no words. I have no reaction or response. Fuck, I failed. I bet everything on this. My livelihood, my daughter's safety, my freedom. So what's going to happen now? I ask as the shock of what I just heard continues to seep and slowly sink in. Well, Mr. Alfaro, you're being detained, and after a few moments, we will begin the process of formally issuing you a final order of deportation. In the meantime, you will remain in custody here until you are picked up and taken to a deportation center where once all of your paperwork is completed, you will be given the opportunity to contact legal counsel or a family member that may be able to help you prepare for your arrival back to, let me see here. Your passport says Guatemala. Yes, Guatemala. You were back to the States with someone, or were you traveling alone? Okay, don't worry. I'll have an officer summon your mother and inform her that you will not be released today. Does she need an interpreter? Because we can find one for you, but it'll just take a little bit longer since all of our bilingual agents are tied up. She speaks English. Good on her. It was about time the president made English the official language of this country. Now, listen, there's no need to put handcuffs on you right now, but once it's time for you to be transferred, we will have to, unless you're planning on causing a problem for me, and I have no issue cuffing you right now. But you're not going to be a problem for me, are you? Great. Okay, then, Ainer, me and another officer will come back and check on you in a bit. Just hang tight. I did the best that I could, but it just wasn't enough. The devil told me it would happen, but I kept calling his bluff. See, when it rains, it pours. Now, my pain is horror. I've lost all my life by testing these so-called revolving doors, draw to the floor. When my mom was told she would have to head on, when she asked about her son, they said he's flying back home. You know when she heard that? On the phone, when she was back home. I made some real promises that I intend to keep. It took me almost 3 weeks of replaying my mistake and foregoing my sleep. Made my grandmother weep when she suggested I adapt to the old colony streets. I told her that I'd take a long dirt nap and say hi to granddad than to stand around idly by as I watched my life slip away and fly. I visited my father's grave towards the end of February. He didn't offer a response to my questions, much like when I saw his corpse in the mortuary. He left me with much more to worry. U.S. favor was encouraged, so now I carry my belongings in a knapsack. As I try to get back to Aileen in a hurry, making my plan up in between quick naps as I took a bus to Talisman City on the border of Mexico in my native country. I kept my head down while letting my hair grow as a visual way to see how much time would let go. I made it halfway to Mexico, riding atop of the beast, got robbed and beaten by some fools from MS-13. Eventually made it to the campsite at Plaza Chaparral, made it before one of my brothers picked me up in a car. Does it count as human trafficking when the person in the trunk is someone you share childhood memories with? Risk of felony for family is not the real monstrosity. It's living in the shadows you had grown accustomed to being out of. You miss the sun when the world's darkness envelops, leaving me fed up as I wait for the feds to develop new ways to level up the scale of tax on my fellas. I speak these words a cappella so melodies won't conjure up false remedies like the final reversal in a tragic comedy, reintroduced into the underground economy. Cash only, please. The silver lining is I had enough faith for Aileen to take care of biz. I had planned for prolonged absences, but now I got to figure out how to gain access to resources without getting spotted and deported. It's like a sports game that I'm constantly shorted until the night I came home and took a pistol that's loaded, played out the ending of Vanilla Sky to see if God's reality was really bluffing. Woke up to my daughter Frankie crying this morning. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. This was great.
Hey, so next month, November, around, I don't have the specific date yet, but in November, we will be having our yearly True Story Warrior Unit Veterans event. It's always powerful. I hope you'll join us. I really do. And then we'll be back in December with a theme when I decide what it is. So, please, if you'd like to join. And thank you, everyone. Eve, well done. Sarah, Jordan, Alex, Christopher, thank you. That's Christopher, everybody. Hey, there's cookies and strawberries and a lot of wine, so enjoy yourselves. And we'll talk soon.